football analysis does not get better than Mina Kimes. And especially when she's talking about her own team, the Seattle Seahawks, which I preview with her. We talk Geno Smith, we talk Jackson Smith and Jigba, we talk DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, the defense, the offense, Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson. We get into a whole bunch of stuff with one of the smartest football minds that we have in America, Mina Kimes.
Here in Seattle, Lumen Field. Look at this, the home of one Mina Kimes. You actually live here at Lumen Field, or?
Yeah, I do. I you can't see my house. It's
up here, right? Somewhere up there.
Somewhere up there, yeah.
Okay, so Mina, the Seattle Seahawks, a team that everybody kind of thought, hey, look, no Russ. We're going to trot out Geno Smith, and the team surprisingly was good.
Yeah, Geno.
Like, why?
Geno, honestly, it really starts there, which was, he started a few games when Russell Wilson was hurt in 2021, and it was kind of mixed. He had a couple good games, but he really didn't play much football for a really long time. And I think it's what made it so surprising, but also it wasn't like a player who was bad and then suddenly got good. It was a guy who just didn't play. He wasn't a starter. So it was a very unusual career trajectory. And, I think last year he certainly surpassed my expectations based on what I saw earlier in his career. In a lot of ways, he threw probably the most beautiful deep ball in the NFL last season. He was accurate. He was playmaking. Performance dipped a little bit at the end of the season, but by and large, he played like a top quarterback in the NFL, and the offense was really good because of it.
It's crazy too. Like, looking at some of the stuff, they scored 30 touchdowns on plays longer than 10 yards.
Yeah.
No other team had more than 27. Like, that's such a stark departure from what they were, right?
Well, Russell Wilson was a very good thrower of the deep ball, but he was a little bit inconsistent his last 2 years in Seattle. And, Geno had the benefit of playing with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, one of the better 1-2 punches, a receiver in the NFL, both guys who can win deep. And he was really aggressive throwing downfield, tight window throw rate really high. Just about every advanced metric, he was the best deep ball thrower in the NFL, to be honest. So it was fun to watch. They were very explosive. They actually weren't that great running the ball last year, which was kind of held them back a bit.
And what was weird too is you would see Kenneth Walker like take off for these like 60-yard runs, and you're like, oh wow, this guy's incredible. And you look and he's like, he kind of wasn't that great, which is why they went out and spent a second-round pick on a running back.
Yeah, it was very boomer bust, to your point. And the guy they drafted from LA, Zach Charbonnet, is a little bit more, I think, consistent, kind of grind them out. So I think it'll be a good pairing. I think this offense is going to be really, really good. I have some concerns about the defense, but I think the offense is going to be awesome.
Add Jackson Smith and Jigba, who was awesome. And now you're looking at the Seahawks having like maybe the best trio of wide receivers. Like, if we can project out Jackson into what we think he could be, and you got DK, you got Tyler Lockett, and you got Jigba on the outside, it's like, wait a second, like, this is a legitimate team.
I think that they're probably the second best 1-2-3 at receiver. Now, I think there's better 1-2s, like in Philly, for example. There's a few. But behind Cincinnati with Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, I would put Seattle, and obviously that involves some projection with Smith and Jigba. But he was so polished in college and such a good fit with the two receivers in Seattle because of his ability to work the slot, get yards after the catch. Just a real problem for defenses.
And you look across this division, you've got two teams that are kind of just in nowhere, in a wasteland. And then you got the 49ers, who it feels like you guys have always been chasing. How do you think that comp, obviously the added offensive firepower, knowing that the defense is maybe lacking a little bit on the backside, but how do you think this division is going to play out with the 49ers kind of retooling and looking good again, another year of them looking good again?
I got the Niners winning the division. A fan, but a realist. That roster is just so stacked on both sides of the ball. And then I think Seattle's, they're a wild card team for sure. And then they're a wild card team in part because the Cardinals and the Rams the Cardinals are straight up not trying to win this year.
Terrible.
And then the Rams are kind of a weird team because I think the offense could be okay if Stafford, Kupp are healthy and the line plays a little bit better. But defensively, it is a wild roster. Like, I used to work the Rams preseason. I took this summer off, but it's guys who I remember like playing in the preseason. Like,
That's never good.
It's very rookie heavy. A lot of guys, and then get some guys on 1-year deals. So I think because of the competition, both Seattle and San Francisco, that's 4 games each against 2 really, really not great rosters.
Yeah, Arizona. I was looking across. I'm like, who's playing right now? And Marlon Mack just got hurt with another Achilles tear too a couple days ago. It's like, man, like I don't know. That's a bad team. Pete Carroll had obviously some interesting comments at the beginning of last year. Some people wanted to draw that to being shade for Russell Wilson. I feel like that's in the back burner now. How do you think Pete's going to do this season?
I think really good. I mean, this whole thing, the last year, I think it was a lot of it because of Geno Smith, but it was really a referendum on Pete Carroll in a good way, right? Because, there were stories about how Russ wanted him out and wanted Sean Payton. And then, there were a lot of times during the Russell Wilson era when fans and analysts, myself included, were frustrated with Pete's adherence to running the ball. The fact that they wanted to move on from him was frustrating. But frankly, he was right about moving on, clearly, right? So I think, the challenge for him is really not offensive, it's defense. This was not a good defense last year, particularly against the run. They added a few players, some really good additions, I think. So to me, that's going to be really incumbent upon Pete this year. He's so famous for those defenses from like 2012 or really 2010 through 2013-ish, 14. But they haven't been good for a while. So they need to be a lot better if they actually want to compete.
Funny how in the power balance, power dynamic of quarterback and head coach, usually the quarterback wins in a lot of those cases. And this one was like, nah, Russell, see you later. And then he ended up getting Sean Payton anyway. But last year was kind of a disaster. Again, Hackett will kind of throw that under the rug, but it's weird how that usually never happens. And it ended up happening where Pete Carroll won. And then on top of that had the last laugh because Russell and Denver were terrible and Geno Smith comeback player of the year. Like the story wrote itself.
I think Pete Carroll and John Schneider, the GM, being aligned is a big part of why they ultimately won that power struggle. There was also a change in ownership. There were some things happening on the back end, but you're right. It's very, at least it used to be really unusual. It's pretty unusual for teams to part ways with a franchise quarterback and, Russell Wilson, who really changed the team forever. And obviously they won that Super Bowl. So it was very unusual for the coach to win. And then for him to come out that first game with Geno and actually win that one as well. I mean, the Schadenfreude in Seattle was through the roof.
We wrote him off. He didn't write back. Last question. Who's the one player, offensive or defensive on this roster that you're looking forward to this year and being like, okay, I'm excited to see this guy play?
I really like the guy they took 5th overall, Devin Witherspoon, which was a bit surprising because I think a lot of people, honestly, myself included, until like that last day, thought they would take a pass rusher or maybe a defensive tackle, Jalen Carter. I thought Witherspoon was the best corner in the draft. He's such a fun player to watch, and you guys will get to see this because he's really not that big, maybe just a touch under 6 feet or about 6 feet, but he's so physical. Like, he laid some of the hardest hits I have seen from a cornerback of the last few years. He plays a lot bigger in his size. He plays inside, outside, man, zone. He can really do it all. I think they're going to use him pretty creatively. And, Pete Carroll has this great history of coaching up DBs. Last year, Tariq Woolen, it was a later round draft pick, ended up being awesome for them. So, I don't believe, now that I think about it, in his time in Seattle, they've ever drafted somebody a cornerback that high. So the combination of his pedigree, what we saw in college, Pete Carroll coaching him, I think he could be a really, really, really fun player this year.
Mina, thank you so much. Live from Lumen Field, her home. I don't see Lenny anywhere, but I'm sure he's probably hanging out somewhere. Check out all of her stuff, the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny, ESPN, NFL Live, all that good stuff. She's amazing there. Mina, thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you. Bye.